20, and we're doing section 2 today. Yeah. And it's called Freedom and Security of the Persons. Slavery and involuntary servitude. The 13th Amendment was added into the Constitution in 1865. It ended over 200 years of slavery. Every state was allowed to decide for itself whether to allow slavery until 1865. Involuntary servitude is forced labor. Unlike any other provision, the 13th Amendment covers conducts of private individuals as well as behaviors of the government. In effect of the civil rights cases in 1883, the court held racial discrimination against African Americans by private individuals. Discrimination is bias or unfairness. In Jones v. Mayer, 1968, the Supreme Court led new life into the 13th Amendment. Jones, an African American who tried to buy a house from Mayer but didn't sell it to him purposely because of his race.
The right to keep and bear arms. As the Second Amendment states, a well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. This amendment was added to the Constitution to protect the rights of each state. The amendment's aim was to preserve the concept of the citizen soldiers. The United States versus Miller case in 1939 was the most important of the Second Amendment. The Second Amendment is not covered by the first due process law.
And by the first due process law, what are you referring to? There are two aspects I think maybe you should, and that was covered in section 1, so it's kind of hard to reference those, but what were the two parts of the due process that you need to be aware of?
Wasn't it
Free exercise, the religion?
No, the due process clause, the 14th Amendment, has two components to it. What are those two components? You just mentioned the first part of that. Yes, substantive and procedural. Very good.
That's all coming now, bro.
Mr. Rogers, I have a question.
What's that say?
No, well, I was just wondering if, like, the class participates, like, does that get the group 4 points? Is that a good
Even more important points is hopefully elevating the level of academic discussion, as you guys are, many of you are college bound, so it should go without saying that that's something that you should want to do intrinsically because of the nature of growing yourself academically, rather than just for points.
Well, no, I'm just
Yeah.
That's, yeah. $30 words right there, I hurt my brain.
Security of homes and persons. The 3rd and 14th Amendments say that the government cannot violate the home or person of any in the country. 3rd Amendment forbids the quartering of soldiers in private homes and peacetime without the owner's consent. 4th Amendment was designed to prevent the use of rights of a citizen's of citizen assistance blanket earth warrant, which British custom officials had invaded private homes to search for smuggled goods, profitable cost, a reasonable suspicion of crime. Florida versus JL 2000 illustrates the probable cost.
Were you going to talk about that particular case, or are you just throwing it out there for the sake of throwing it out?
Oh, just kind of more like throwing it out there. Because it was kind of about like people, or like having the police being able to search homes like without having
A warrant, yeah. Arrest. Arrest is a seizure or seizure of a person. If you are under arrest, they do not need a warrant to search. The Illinois versus Wardlow in 2000 shows this point. A highway patrolman was patrolling in Chicago, sacked Wardlaw saw and ran from them, and he got caught. Automobiles. The Fourth Amendment was marked to apply to automobiles. The Carroll versus United States in 1925 is an early leading place to this point. The court overturned a long string of automobile search cases in 1991. The exclusionary rule. It is the evidence gained as a result of an illegal act by police cannot be used against the persons from whom it was seized. In the Weeks versus United States in 1914, the court held evidence of obtaining illegally by federal officers. The exclusionary rule was finally extended to the states in Mapp versus Ohio in 1961.
Meaning, what do you mean by that exclusionary rule?
So if like a person got caught and he was taken to jail and the police illegally probably entered his home or entered the car. Well, actually no, it says in the other one that once that you're arrested that they can do a search without a warrant. But if they get evidence that was illegally gotten by the cops, if they didn't have a warrant to go into the house and they still went in, they got all this evidence against the guy, they can't use it against them because it was illegally obtained.
So it's like.
So you're saying as part of the due process clause, it wasn't that the substance was bad, but the procedure, the person's procedural due process was violated because it didn't fall within the parameters that the law allowed.
Yeah.
So you're saying that everything, let's say this guy was a mass murder, okay, and the police arrested him and took him to jail, and someone had told them, but they never bothered to, gave him information, but they never got the warrant. You're telling me even if they went into this individual's house and found these bodies, he could get out of that?
No.
Yes, you can, because the police went in there without a warrant.
But it says in plain view, that's like,
Whoa.
like that's an exception. Like, you know what I mean?
If the cop
By plain view, what are you talking about?
Like if they see you like smuggling, the example that they give on here is like they see someone like smuggling cocaine through their apartment. Like they don't need a warrant because they're like obviously seeing you. Like,
Okay, so you're saying the police, if they see it with their own eyes, then it's legit to go in.
yeah.
But what I was
it's in
saying,
plain view.
okay, that's plain view.
It's already after the arrest that they go in and they get the evidence.
But what I was telling Joey is they heard from an informant that, this guy's got dead bodies in his house. So they just decided to go on in there.
No, they can't.
Go through a process.
They can't.
invalidate the evidence, right?
It couldn't validate it.
Yes.
Even though his DNA is all over the bodies, his murder weapon's in there, because his procedural due process was violated, he could get off scot-free.
Treated unfairly, man.
Well, we don't use unfairly in the law. We use
That's the system.
substantive and we use procedural due
Beat the
process.
system.
And what amendment is this?
The 14th.
Cases narrowing the rule. Exclusionary rule has always been controversial. The most commonly known cases for this are Nix versus William 1985, which found an inevitable discovery. United States versus Leon 1984, which the court found good faith. Arizona versus Evans 1995, the court held good faith exemption applied in a case where evidence of a crime was seized. Maryland versus Garrison 1987, the court gave police room for honest mistakes.
I'm curious, what is an honest mistake as defined by the Supreme Court in Maryland v. Garrison? Can a policeman say, I'm sorry, it was an accident, and it's still okay, or...
He just shot you. Oh, my bad. You're the wrong guy.
Hashtag Ferguson.
What's an honest mistake? I've kind of wondered, what's the criteria as established by the Supreme Court?
I think that means like if you can gather evidence saying that you made the mistake and you weren't intentionally going to like commit a crime, then that could be
The police?
Yeah,
The
like,
police aren't actively seeking to commit crimes,
Well-
are they?
Or
I
if
mean, what the
they feel
Supreme
like that
Court-
person is going to do something
Yeah.
to them, they have the right to act.
yeah, because I
upon it.
mean, police
Say it
can,
again, Daniel?
Like if they feel like someone's going to harm them, they have the right to act, like
Active harm.
act upon it.
Like a
Or would it also
Self-
be
pretty much
like
self-defense.
if a person, let's say there's a guy that robbed a store, and
Someone-
describe him, they describe him the way they describe him, and later on, there's a person that kind of fits that description, and if they get him, they nab him. Could it then be like caused as an honest mistake because he wasn't the person?
'Cause
and
like-
they find out that he's not the person.
'Cause
Like a misprofile?
Because there's some people that
So
reach
would that
into
be
their coats,
considered an
and
honest
some police like take it as they're gonna take out a weapon, so they start.
yeah, and then there are some police that like, I mean, they're human too. They will
Yes.
take advantage of their power that they're police officer and could go and murder someone and say, oh, like,
Okay, I'm just asking what is the court's criteria for an honest mistake? So I think we've got some ideas there.
Welcome.
There's poor lighting in this room. I can't work with this.
Drug testing. Federal drug testing programs involve searches of persons and so are covered by the Fourth Amendment. The court held that they can be conducted without either warrant or even any indication of drug use by those who must take them. They involve mandatory drug testing for drug enforcement officers of the United States Customs Services who carry firearms, which is the National Treasury Employee Union. Also, railroad workers following a train accident.
I'm guessing it was.
No, okay, those are just like the cases that are going with those. Is basically just what it is.
So wait, they can or they can't? What?
They
I was
what?
caught.
They
You know, if I
they can drug test you and you
Who?
police.
The man.
They can pull Sergio off the street and give you a drug test right there?
No.
Nah.
Nah.
Because even in those DUI checkpoints, you're not allowed to. They're not allowed to breathalyze you until.
Yeah, but you sign an implied consent form when you get your license, and if you refuse to submit to a blood alcohol content test, whether that be a field sobriety test, a breathalyzer, or a blood draw, if you refuse, you, by the implied consent, when you signed your license, you forfeit your
right.
forfeit your license.
And don't let people that participate in sports have to do it too.
Okay, so now
Hey,
you're
Rod.
making a difference. What's the difference between pulling Sergio off the street and the police saying, I'm taking a drug test, and saying to Crystal, before you get out on the volleyball court, we're taking a drug test?
We're in for a job.
Is there a difference?
Well,
Is it more like a school rule? Like if you take a
Like,
drug test
you
for
have to
sports, like you're agreeing before you start the sport. Like wouldn't they make you?
well, that goes.
Wouldn't they tell you that before?
Okay, so you can't play the sport unless you're willing to submit to a drug test.
Yeah, they can randomly tell you, like, oh, come here, and then you have to do it.
Okay, now let's go back out to the street. Could I pull Sergio off the street, just there, and I'm a policeman, I say, give me a drug test?
No.
No.
If you found evidence, right?
Okay, what if Sergio now works for Amtrak, and he's an engineer on the Amtrak, and I come in and I say, Serge, give me a blood draw right now.
Dog, I'm working, dog. No.
Is that legit?
Yeah.
yeah.
Do you have a choice, Serge?
Yeah. Unless he wants to keep his job, yeah.
Okay, that's your choice. That's your choice, right?
Some jobs do require drug tests.
Fast food places don't.
I think when you're working.
Yeah, you want an engineer driving your train who's tainted by
Coked out.
alcohol or drugs?
You know what, Mr.
Coked out to
Rogers?
the max.
And you know what? Hold on, Danielle.
My uncle used to work at the LA airport, right? And he said that he has seen some of the pilots actually be at the bar and then go on and fly the airplanes. Like those big airplanes filled with like more than 100 people.
Those big
So-
air-
It's like that's pretty dangerous. I think they should have a.
They do. They drug test.
Okay.
You only live once though.
Since he didn't get caught because he didn't crash the plane, maybe if he would have crashed the plane, then the police would have had the right to drug test him.
But he'd be dead.
Before.
Yeah.
He'd be dead though.
Anytime you are
Or not.
employed, part of the requirements for that job is that you submit to a blood test. If not, you can quit.
I'd
Jobs do require that. In the case, there is a case that we were talking about in the last slide, where if you are involved in a crash and the police think that you're on drugs, and I think they have the right to drug test you, right?
Well, if they take you to the hospital because of the injury, and at the hospital, once they take off the blood, that's when they get it anyway.
Joey, you seem to be really familiar with these.
Are you saying Joe? Are you gonna be really? What did you say, Joe?
No, that was like, I
I
can't.
want to know.
The advertisement.
Well, we're all learning.
Gangsta, homie.
Wired.
Like that, right? Like
What goes on today?
Words that can just like, come here.
Or you can choose to say, I what?
I quit. I don't want to play.
You can either take the
Buster
test
Ricky
or
Williams, baby.
I'll just get a little kids pee and then.
On with the lesson.
Wiretapping electronic
I'm sure that's what
eavesdropping,
you've done.
videotaping, and other forms of sophisticated means of bugging are widely used in the United States. Supreme Court decided the first wiretap case in 1928. In Olmstead versus United States, federal agents taped a Seattle bootlegger's phone call.
Bianca, I know it looks like tape, but it's actually
Tap.
So wiretapping.
I knew that.
NSA?
Actually, up in Dugway, Utah, the NSA has built one of the most advanced electronic communications recording. They reportedly, we don't know because it's top secret, but reportedly they are able to store and capture all conversations via cell phone, landlines, and internet, so that they can crunch data and they can craft algorithms that will look for and pull out keywords and phrases in terms of voice and email. And that's one of the major tools in how they're intercepting terrorist communications as well as foreign enemies.
Did you hear about the Xbox thing? How they were like trying to
That's what they said. I guess it was that since they're able to do that, like it's for if a person gets caught and if he is someone related to terrorism, they're able to trace back and find all his calls that he's made, so that way they're able to track down all the rest of the alliances. Which is pretty dumb, man.
You're a smart guy, Joey.